On a planet whose surface is 3/4 water, the mysteries of the deep have long provided potent inspiration for the active imagination. When ancient mariners drew maps of a world they had only begun to understand, they wrote over vast, unexplored oceans, "Here there be monsters." Today it seems that our entire world has been well documented by explorers or scientists, and that all our monsters have been found out. But swimming silently in the icy depths of the Arctic, there is one creature that has remained a mystery. Until now. To qualify as a monster to loom in our imagination, the shark has been more than happy to oblige. Its stealthy and toothsome biological design has made it the most feared predator of the deep. Almost all of the 465 shark species live in tropical waters, feasting on a 4-star buffet that is easy to spot coming, including the odd scientist. Only 8 are known to frequent more forbidding waters. And these have proven more difficult to study than their southern cousins. But only one still remains more legend than fact. It has never been studied in the wild, and left scientists scratching their heads for over a century. A true monster.
John Steinbeck wrote that an ocean without unnamed monsters would be like a completely dreamless sleep. And somewhere in the human psyche, I think we need monsters, undescribed things. They are not necessarily scary, but they're undescribed and mysterious. That's really what a monster is. And I think in my psyche, that was what the Greenland shark was.
The Greenland shark. It is the largest Arctic fish and one of the world's largest sharks. At over 20 feet in length and weighing in at more than a ton, it rivals the stature of the fearsome great white. But unlike all shark species, the Greenland shark remains a great unknown, fueling the imaginations of scientists worldwide. Many have traveled north to study the secret life of this mysterious shark. But so far, only dead specimens washed up on a beach or snared in a net have been found. And no one has ever filmed a Greenland shark swimming freely in the wild. Ever. For Dr. Chris Harvey Clark, a marine biologist at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, sharks have loomed large in his imagination since childhood.
I think it would probably have to be Christmas morning about 1970, unwrapping a parcel that had a book about sharks in it and reading about that. But that focused an interest that had come from my father, who swam with sharks all his childhood.
Dr. Clark's early fascination with sharks would ultimately become a lifelong passion. But there was one shark in particular that swam the strongest in his dreams.
The first time I ever saw a Greenland shark, I guess I was about 12 years old, living in Ottawa. It was in the Ottawa Citizen newspaper. It was a picture of a fellow with a toque and a parka on, who sitting beside an ice fishing hole with 2 sharks laid out on the ice beside him.
This fisherman's tale didn't make the front page because of a slow news day, but its unlikely location. These sharks had been caught far from their Arctic home, hauled through the ice on a frozen river in Quebec called the Saguenay. The Saguenay is a tributary of the Great St. Lawrence River, the most important shipping channel in North America. With breathtaking cliffs and a unique marine ecosystem, it is one of the few inland fjords in the world. Greenland sharks were thought to frequent only the Arctic waters near their namesake island. Yet the Saguenay is almost 3,000 kilometers and a sharp left turn from home. For over 20 years, this unusual shark story continued to intrigue Chris Harvey Clark. What were they doing so far from home? His attempts at finding an answer remained as elusive as the shark itself.
Looking for Greenland sharks in Canada has been like looking for Bigfoot. It's a bit like cryptozoology in that we started with nothing. There was really no literature on these animals.
In fact, all that did seem to exist in this remote, isolated region on the north shore of the St. Lawrence were local stories of shark encounters, and these had never been translated for the benefit of the English-speaking world. But in 1996, Chris got lucky. He met another shark expert who knew the area well, yet he too had never heard the stories about the Greenland shark.
I guess it all started when I met Chris at a dive conference in Nova Scotia. Chris mentioned this story about when he was a kid, having read an article about sharks having been fished in the Saguenay Fjord through the ice. And when we started talking about this, he says, "Why don't you investigate this story?"
Jeff Galland is a professor and professional diver from Drummondville, Quebec. His passion for sharks has taken him around the world, including a Cousteau research expedition.
One of the most interesting things in regards to the Greenland shark is that so little is known about it. The other thing is, relatively speaking, it's in my backyard. And to have such a big animal still be such a mystery in 2003 is just something I had to work on.
Now Jeff too was hooked on the mystery of the Saguenay sharks. And because he spoke French, he became the perfect sleuth to conduct some old-fashioned detective work.
Et pour ce qui est des poissons comme le requin du Groenland, lui, j'en ai entendu parler, je l'ai vu dans les journaux. Je sais que dans le milieu des années 90, vers 96, on a attrapé un requin qui mesurait à peu près 4 mètres à la baie, dans la baie des AA.
A voyage up the majestic Saguenay Fjord is a journey into the heart of French Canada.
They're doing things that we didn't think they do. They can move fast.
For 500 years, the Saguenay has been home to a unique culture of farmers and fishers, and for those willing to ask, its very own monster. The St. Lawrence River, first explored by Jacques Cartier in 1535, appears more like a vast inland sea. Ships lost in its unpredictable swells, maidens abandoned on remote islands, and epic battles fought on its shores. The Fleuve Saint Laurent is home to a host of legends, some still alive and well just below its surface. In summer, 19 marine mammals, including minke, beluga, and humpback whales, also call these waters home. And where the Saguenay River meets the St. Lawrence is one of the best whale-watching destinations in the world.
What do you think, Captain? Is that a small fin or is that a minke?
But while these gentle giants thrill thousands of tourists, they offer only a glimpse of the unique underwater universe they inhabit, a world they share with another, more mysterious giant.
The Greenland shark's environment is just a fascinating environment. It's alive There is life just hanging on to everything.
Here, two unique marine worlds collide, creating an amazing explosion of life and color. From the Atlantic, the tides deliver cold salt water, carrying nutrient-rich plankton and swarms of krill. These support a dynamic food chain, ranging from anemones and sea peaches, wolffish and capelin, to some of the world's biggest ocean dwellers. The Saguenay Fjord itself was formed during the last Great Ice Age, when retreating glaciers left behind a deep scar carved into the Laurentian Mountains. Its cliffs soar 400 meters high and mirror a riverbed of almost the same depth. In the fjord, salt water flowing in from the St. Lawrence meets freshwater runoff from the interior. Different temperatures and salinity means the waters don't mix. The colder, denser salt water slips under the warmer freshwater, and in the process, creates a submerged high-rise of biodiversity. The Greenland shark might be attracted here for the same reason as the whales: food, and lots of it.
These are animals that eat up and down the food chain. They'll eat marine mammal blubber, top of the food chain. They'll eat sedentary invertebrates on the bottom, and everything in between.
Chris was sure that Greenland sharks lurked in the fjord, but he was short on scientific evidence. That all changed when he and his partner, Jeff Gallant, began their grassroots investigation.
I started driving around the Saguenay, speaking to fishers, people at the Fjord Museum, anyone that I would see at the dock just fishing with a normal fishing line. I'd come up and go see him and say, "What do you know about sharks?" And people came up with all these amazing stories and photos, and that's how the investigative part all started out about 5 years ago. Vous êtes monsieur?
Steven Guerin.
Steven, bonjour. Jeffrey Gallant.
Chris Harvey Clark, bonjour.
It was the beginning of a unique journey. A mysterious Arctic fish had become a local legend. But until Chris and Jeff came along, no one had ever asked why or where.
Vous étiez capitaine?
Moi, j'avais un chalutier à 60 pieds. On pêchait la crevette. J'ai attrapé un requin de genre-là.
Soon enough, they discovered that as long as there had been a Quebec, there had been stories about sharks. The first was about a 16th century sailor whose leg was bitten off in a shark attack while swimming in the St. Lawrence. Pulled from the water, he bled to death on the deck of his ship.
Je crois que les gens du Saguenay adorent leurs requins.
I think the people of the Saguenay love their shark. It has almost become a mythical creature, a mascot of sorts for the people. The Greenland shark may be our own Loch Ness monster here in the Saguenay.
Here it seemed that the Greenland shark was nothing short of a celebrity. But for Jeff and Chris,
I want to see this.
it was the modern stories that really captured their attention.
Okay, you've got me hooked like the shark. I want to see this head now.
It's a part of it because the guys there, they didn't took complete.
Padu de la Durante's catch ended up on his kitchen wall.
Now this is the actual, this isn't a cast. It feels to me like they used the actual skin
This
from
is
the
the
head.
real.
This
That's
is
the
the
real
real
skin.
thing.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He's right there, and those teeth. That's the teeth of it.
And they're still pretty darn sharp.
Yeah.
So the holding teeth on the top, the cutting teeth on
and
the
the cutting
bottom.
teeth on the top like
Yeah.
that. When he bite, he cut, and there he goes.
I've seen pictures of whales that have been bitten by these,
Yeah.
and it's like an ice cream scoop, and a big shark
How
will
come?
take a 10 or 12 pound, perfect, like a
And
bowl.
he just bite and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
cut.
Evidence of sharks in the Saguenay was everywhere. It just didn't exist in scientific journals.
Almost symmetrical.
But around dinner tables or over a bière forte at the local bar, it was becoming obvious that the Greenland shark was a respected member of the local community.
It's the king because it's not easy to catch, and it deserves a place of honor. I think it's chosen the most beautiful place in Canada, maybe even the world.
Okay. Puis vous en avez pris en même temps?
We caught the shark at night. We checked on our lines when we got there. It was heavy, so we figured we had some cod. It was caught on 3 of our lines, so we pulled and pulled, and there it was, all twisted up.
Yeah, that's the giant one. Yeah, I remember this one. This is impressive.
Now it was up to Chris and Jeff to turn legends and lore into scientific fact. And if they were ever going to study this shark in the flesh, they would have to dive into its world. It was time to mount an expedition. So far, the evidence they had gathered indicated a certain time of year that Greenland sharks like to spend in the Saguenay, the dead of winter.
Okay. What?
Lui, c'est à Ville de la Baie.
What?
When the cold winds blow into Quebec's Saguenay Fjord, a new world is born. It's a bleak, frozen landscape. But winter is prime-time fishing season here, and so it seems, for catching sharks. In the past 40 years, dozens had been reeled in by unsuspecting fishers. Aurélien Gagné got his big surprise in 1995 and captured the entire event on his video camera.
Listen, when the shark came up the hole and I saw the tip of its nose, I sure jumped. I wasn't scared, but I always have a grapnel beside me. I grabbed it with the grapnel to take it out. We widened the hole. My friends had to come over and help me.
For shark researchers Jeff Gallant and Chris Harvey-Clark, it was more convincing proof.
So far from being extremely rare, they are around. The second thing was to go and actually look for a likely location, and that location was at the head of the Saguenay Fjord at La Baie, huge ice fishing camp there, probably 1,000 huts. And in 1996, anyway, we knew that I believe 5 sharks had been caught there, and over the years, almost every year a shark or 2.
And it was here that Jeff and Chris decided to mount their expedition. They called it Operation Skalukskoak, the Inuit name for the Greenland shark. Surrounded by fishing huts, the team sought a hole in the ice 2 feet thick and hoped for some good old-fashioned luck.
These areas here on the map are where they caught the Greenland shark. So they would have caught 2 at this fishing camp. Likely 1 in the first.
But the fjord's physical landscape, a haven for the deep-water Greenland shark, was a big problem. Diving in these cold, murky waters would be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
If you had a 4-meter predator crossing your lawn in urban Toronto, you'd sure know about it, so would everybody else. But things under the water are invisible, so people don't know they're there.
To find this shark, known as the giant swimming nose, the team had planned for any possible encounter.
We've got literally 100-pound blocks of meat on the bottom in wire cages. We made these big wire burritos.
And then tonight, when we put more in, we'll actually have the blood balls. We'll add the blood balls to it. We've got 2 doors on each side. The doors are large enough for a diver to be able to swim through with his tank on. If a shark does show up, the shark is very bashful at first. So we thought that we could probably manage to get close to the shark without using the cage at first.
The team's arrival on the ice had drawn a lot of attention from both the media and the local community. Most thought that Chris and Jeff were crazy to dive in these extreme conditions.
People thought we were nuts to dive under the ice in the wintertime. But the reason we were there is because this shark is only known to come up near the surface in the wintertime when the surface water is colder than the bottom water. And since the shark is a shark that will normally be found at 1,000 feet and deeper, there's no way we can reach that depth on scuba gear.
So the diving conditions were extreme. The environmental conditions were extreme. The weather was terrible. I mean, it was sunny, but it was extremely cold, minus 30, minus 40. Equipment would freeze, plastic would just shatter. Regulators, your diving regulators would freeze open underwater, and you lose your air supply in a couple of minutes. It was difficult diving, difficult situation.
You had all these factors. You had the ice, you had current under the ice, total darkness, only one way out. But we did this according to scientific diving safety standards. The team was very experienced.
Experience and safe diving protocols would protect the divers from the elements. But what if they did meet their monster? In this environment, no one knew what to expect.
Our lights would light up all of the big boulders on the bottom, and then the shadows of these rocks would move around as we're looking in different directions, and each rock looked like it could have been a Greenland shark.
Okay, so remember, just tell me when you guys are going down.
I don't want to go down. I don't want this to end.
For days, the team explored this harsh, dark world. But instead of answers, only new questions surface with the divers.
It's got to be in the tent.
The sort of questions that a kid might ask you about the biology of these animals. Where does it go? What does it eat? How does it reproduce? How big does it get? How old is it? Can't answer them. I mean, these animals are really virtually undescribed and unknown in science. And I think that's a real challenge.
Operation Skalugskawak revealed a lot about the Saguenay ecosystem. But why the Greenland shark had never been studied in the wild before was becoming obvious. Diving here in the winter was just as tough as diving in the Arctic. And as the untouched bait stations proved, results were impossible to guarantee.
At the end of the Skalugskawak expedition, we felt whacked, basically. We were physically beaten up. We were, we had bruises and cuts and frozen fingers. Our equipment was beat up. Our psyches were a bit beat up because we were very pumped. We really thought we were going to see a Greenland shark, and we didn't.
Themselves. Yep. They go in and rip a piece of flesh off and bugger off.
Jeffrey, what's next? I'm talking big picture here, Jeff.
Big picture. Okay. I'm still in the expedition.
Would you come back next year?
Yes, I would, but only if we didn't have to take care of all the logistics again, like the generator, the tent, and all that stuff. That took a lot of our time.
Jeff and Chris remained convinced that they could find the Greenland shark. And the next winter, they were back. Even though Skalugskawak too had to face the same tough challenges. The team was now attracting national attention, and even more stories of local shark encounters. But under the ice, it was still nowhere to be found. Now Chris and Jeff faced a classic scientific enigma. How do you find an animal whose very nature makes it almost impossible to study in the wild?
Now, when you're up to 2 strikes, and you know that maybe you'll have another chance at this, and if it doesn't work, then you're through. I had to come up with something with much better chances of actually seeing the animal. Like 1 chance out of 10 is just not going to cut it for another expedition.
Frozen, frustrated, and out of money, it was back to the drawing board. Would they get another chance? Only time would tell. For now, Jeff and Chris were going home. For over 5 years, Jeff Guillaume and Chris Harvey Clark had been hunting for Greenland sharks in the Saguenay Fjord of Quebec with no success.
If you talk to my family and friends, they'll tell you that this Greenland shark thing I have is an obsession. My social life is taking a beating from this. To dive with this animal is something that very, very few people have done in the world. Very few people are studying the animal, and I'm just not going to give up.
2 tough winter expeditions had ended in failure. But both Jeff and Chris still believed that somewhere out there, their monster still lurked in the depths of the Saguenay.
We just got all kinds of anecdotal information that we would never have otherwise had that further confirm the conviction. These sharks are here. We just have to persist and we'll find them.
The 2 explorers had local assistance, experience, and scientific logic on their side. Everything, it seemed, except luck. But then, the unexpected happened.
Just out of nowhere, a few months later, I get this email from someone in Baie-Comeau that says that he had observed a large fish. So immediately I phoned Chris.
And Jeffrey says, listen, Chris, I've been monitoring an electronic bulletin board. I've gotten some information. Some divers in Baie-Comeau are seeing some very big fish. They think they're seeing sharks.
Chris says, why aren't you already on the road to Baie-Comeau?
Well, one of the things that you have to be prepared to do when a serendipitous event comes along is you have to act and act fast.
Which is exactly what Jeff did. And within hours, he was speeding north. The town of Baie-Comeau is located on the north shore of the St. Lawrence, 300 kilometers northeast from the mouth of the Saguenay. Here, Jeff met up with local divers Sylvain Sirois and Alain Simard. Both claim to have had a recent encounter with a Greenland shark.
When we see it, we say it's a fish, it's a big fish, and we are surprised to meet this guy underwater, but we are more surprised to see how big it can be, all the story and the team of scientists is very big. Way bigger than we think.
Alain, c'est plus difficile pour le cargo.
Okay.
But what was Sylvain's big fish? In the blink of an eye, new hope and a new search for the Greenland shark had begun.
For someone to see one on just the one dive, which just wasn't enough to actually set up an expedition and go. This was probably just a fluke encounter. But then when I get this other email from Alain 4 days later, who says he saw potentially the same or different sharks on 3 consecutive dives on the same day, which means that those animals were there probably for the entire week. So why wouldn't they be there now? And that's why we just took off and went for it.
Sylvain and Alain take Jeff to the location where they had both seen the sharks. A secluded bay only minutes up the coast from Baie-Comeau.
Ça, tu l'as vu 3 fois?
Ce requin-là, je l'ai vu 2 fois.
2 fois? L'animal, il faisait quoi?
Il nageait bien tranquillement. C'est comme s'il est venu voir qu'est-ce que j'étais, là.
Okay.
Puis il a vu que j'étais pas, d'après moi, j'étais pas dans son répertoire de manger, ça fait que...
2 sightings at almost the same time in the same place was promising information. But Jeff still wasn't sure. The problem was, the Greenland shark shouldn't be here, swimming in shallow water on a warm June day. Except that this had not been a typical summer. Spring had arrived late, and the water temperature was still unseasonably cold. There was also an unusually large run of bait fish congregating in the bay, both good reasons for the Greenland shark to be here. As Jeff prepared to dive, Chris was still traveling north from Halifax.
The drive to Baie-Comeau, which is about 8 hours and then a couple hours on the ferry, it was sheer torture. I was very excited. I thought maybe this is it. Finally, we've been looking for 5 years. Maybe we finally struck gold.
But at the dive site, Jeff decided he couldn't wait any longer. The sharks Alain and Sylvain observed might already be long gone. After a 5-year search, the anticipation is overwhelming.
The whole time I was just thinking, this might be it. This might be finally the moment where I see this animal, and then I'm not just some cuckoo looking for this magic shark that doesn't exist. Within 2 minutes, Alain tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, looked at him. He's pointing off to our right. And then I see this massive thing just come out of nowhere, coming straight for us. Part of me just couldn't believe it was a shark. It was probably something else. We don't have to swim to it. It's just coming to us. It's looking at us. It was the Greenland shark.
For 5 years, Jeff Guélan had been on a quest, hunting for the Greenland shark. Now, only minutes after diving into the St. Lawrence River near Baie-Comeau, Quebec, Jeff and local divers Alain Simard and Sylvain Sirois had come face to face with this elusive predator.
Immediately, my heart just started to pump like never before. I was breathing air like a newbie on scuba. I just couldn't believe it. It's like watching TV and you've got your lottery ticket number and each number is coming up one after the other, but it just happened. It was like the 6 numbers at once, boom.
Following the slow-moving 4-meter female, Jeff captured the first pictures ever recorded of a Greenland shark swimming freely in the wild. It was a scientific coup and a personal victory.
So many things were going on at the same time. I mean, it was personal satisfaction, it was validation, it was this huge rock off my shoulders. And I was just so hoping that Chris would be there on the next dive to be able to see this too, because we've really been into this, both of us, since the beginning, and it would have been so unfair for just me to see it. So at the same time I was really ecstatic about seeing it, I was thinking about my friend.
Finally, Chris had arrived, and at first light, he and Jeff speed to the dive site. Both are anxious, hoping that the Greenland shark is still there.
According to Sylvain, anyway, the Capelin run is exceptionally good this year. You know, we're getting this assemblage of predators, seals, whales, and maybe sharks in the same location, probably all feeding on a common food source, I would think.
And just like Jeff's first encounter, a shark seeks out the divers only meters from the dock.
Within 2 or 3 minutes, we encountered our first shark. When I first saw the shark emerging out of the gloom, I mean, your heart's pumping, not out of fear, out of sheer excitement.
Now Chris, too, had finally come face to face with the monster of his childhood dreams.
It's like finally you've seen Bigfoot. You've found, you know, the secret graveyard of the elephants. You've found the thing you've looked for years. It's very exciting.
But despite the thrill of their encounter, both divers knew they had a job to do.
In terms of how you feel when you see something like this, there's this tug-of-war going on inside you. One side of you is, you know, primal. It's like, holy cow, this is a huge animal. You have no idea how it's going to behave when you get close to it. Is it going to turn around and take a piece out of you, or is it going to keep going? You know, I don't want to hurt it. I don't want to push its buttons. I want to spend as much time observing it as possible. You know that this may be the only chance in your life you have. You may only have a couple of minutes, and you'll never see this animal again.
This shark is a 2.5-meter male and moves a lot faster than the female Jeff filmed the day before. It swims in a converging course with the divers and changes direction only at the last moment while keeping a sharp eye on these strange intruders. But a sharp eye isn't what they expected. almost all of the Greenland sharks captured in the Arctic were found to have an obvious handicap.
We went into this thinking that these are the giant blind swimming nose model of shark. As long as you get out of the way, you're probably okay. They're slow moving. They're not visual predators. All wrong.
In the past, it was thought that most Greenland sharks were virtually blind, robbed of their eyesight by a parasitic creature called a copepod, which forced the sharks to rely on their noses for dinner. But these sharks had clear eyes, free of parasites, and didn't behave at all like lumbering, blind scavengers.
We found the sharks were very highly maneuverable. They can snap turn on a dime like that. We also found that the sharks basically, when they want to get away from you, they do. They just turn and they book. They take right off and they head for deep water, and we clock them up to 1.4 meters per second, which is faster than a diver can swim. So these sharks are, I think, capable predators.
Chris and Jeff studied the male closely, but the excitement of swimming with Greenland sharks for the very first time had drained their air tanks. They began to surface when suddenly they got another big surprise.
We're tracking the shark and the gauge is going down, and then we see another shark coming in. And I'm out of air. I have to go up. It was the most heartbreaking moment of my diving career when that happened.
After years of frustration, Chris and Jeff could hardly believe their luck, coming face to face with so many sharks in one place at one time.
Hey, incredible, man.
We did it.
Right on, buddy. That was incredible. 2 animals.
But they also knew that success was fleeting. It was time to fill their tanks and get ready for another dive. June 2003 in Baie-Comeau, Quebec. Chris Harvey Clark and Jeff Guélan are making the most of their incredible encounter with Greenland sharks, with 3 contacts in less than 24 hours.
30 feet.
And after 5 frustrating years, they've succeeded in filming them in the wild for the very first time.
I know, it's like an ideal situation. I thought we'd have to go really deep to see these animals. I thought we'd be looking at, 150 feet or something to see them. Find them in 50 or 60 feet is fantastic.
I remember expecting to see it every time now, which is totally contrary to what it was before. On the other dives, never expecting to see anything really. And on these dives, I know I'm going to see him. You're out sitting on the dock having a sandwich, and then we look at the time and say, okay, it's time to go, jump in, and boom, there it is again. And that was just totally incredible.
Now on their 3rd dive, they meet a new 3-meter female. Just like the others, she glides out of the gloom, curious, it seems, to check the divers out.
It was hard to get up close to it. I actually, at one point, when I figured I had enough, I went back over it again, and I just had to touch it, which is really not something I recommend to anyone to do, but I'd just been looking for it for so long, I had to touch it to see if it was real on a personal level.
Although not as aggressive as the male, this female lets the divers know through her body language exactly how close is too close. Depressing her pectoral fins and angling her nose downward, she exhibits the classic defensive posturing of most other shark species.
What it's doing is it's the animal telling you, I don't like your proximity or the way you're behaving, back off.
And I wonder why it would do that, because the Greenland shark has no predator. The only predator it might have is other Greenland sharks, because they will eat each other. And to see the shark do that, and it just naturally did it right away, was surprising.
We noticed some things that the sharks really didn't like. They disliked having you in the 6 o'clock position directly behind them. And this, I've dived with many other species of sharks. This seems to be a pretty consistent shark trait. They do not like you there.
And like other sharks, this female has a scarred and frayed tail. Scars that could have resulted from tail nipping during courtship, a behavior science knows nothing about. And getting up close and personal with the male shark revealed it was missing one of its 2 sex organs. An indication that the mysterious sex life of the Greenland shark could also be a bit wild. At the beginning of each dive, Jeff and Chris try not to linger near the surface too long. With the bright sun overhead, a diver's silhouette looks a lot like a seal. At this site just a few days ago, local divers had a nerve-wracking shark encounter.
The sharks we saw were in the sort of 3-meter range. Other divers in the area had seen one about 5 meters long. That's getting pretty big. When you're that big, they call you mister.
On the way back up to the surface, one of the sharks actually left the bottom and stalked him all the way to the surface.
The real tension with Greenland sharks is we know nothing about them. So is this animal a scavenger or is it a predator? Are we a meal or are we a competitor?
But no sharks are found near the wreck of this old fishing boat, so Jeff and Chris return to the bay. And here, on their next dive, another large female emerges from the shadows behind them.
They were aware of our presence way before we knew they were there, and yet they still came to check us out. So you could say in a way they're curious. Maybe it's because they normally just rule this domain without any interference from anyone else.
In some cases, they would circle back like that, come around behind you, and you'd be doing this dance with sharks. I joked with Jeff that this was kind of like the ballet, only we didn't know what the prima ballerina was going to do at any given moment.
One thing we definitely learned through these dives is that this animal is not what we read about. Some of the things are true, but other things we can question now because of what we saw. Its feeding habits, its interaction with the environment, interactions with humans. These animals had probably never seen a human before.
Is it migratory, and if so, where does it go to? How old does it get? We do not know how old these animals are. Studies indicate that Greenland sharks grow at about 0.5 centimeter a year. So you do the math. How old is a 3 to 4 meter shark?
Is it possible that this shark is over 300 years old? If it is, it would be the oldest living vertebrate on Earth.
So there's just all these questions, more questions than when we actually jumped in the first time.
The female glides silently away from the divers. It's the last one that they would see on this expedition. Today, they still don't know if they will ever see one again. But their insatiable desire for answers guarantees they will be back.
The old 19th century model of science where you macheted your way through the jungle and found the pygmy chimpanzee colony that everybody suspected but nobody knew where it was, that doesn't happen anymore. Except it does underwater, and that's what happened to us.
Diving into the depths of our planet's last frontier, one more monster has been found out. But the mysteries of the sea continue to endure. And that's nature's guarantee to the explorer in all of us that we will never have a dreamless sleep.
Scoured by the Earth's strongest, most unpredictable winds, the vast emptiness of the North is dangerously unforgiving. Yet explorers have been lured here for centuries. Some came searching for the elusive passage to the west, others simply to challenge themselves in one of the world's harshest environments. Perhaps the greatest of them all was Henry Hudson, who sailed into Hudson Bay in 1611. Although his namesake lives on, Hudson himself vanished in the ice and was never seen again. Seduced by history and adventure, explorers are still drawn north to experience its power from new perspectives. One of those is a man who seeks to soar above the solitude and find freedom in the frozen sky. In Ottawa, the capital of Canada, John Davidson has spent 2 years planning one of the riskiest northern adventures ever attempted.
Winds are blowing 40 to 60 clicks. Where? Santa Kilowak. But listen to this, Monday, clear skies. High of -6, that's not bad.
His goal is to fly a hot air balloon over Hudson Bay for the first time, and do it in the dead of winter.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
I've had lots of opportunity to go to various areas in the world and balloon.
We still got food spots?
Of all the places that I've gone ballooning, and I've done some balloon flights in some pretty great places in the world, this was by far the most attractive to me.
Davidson is a rare breed of pilot who thrives in even rarer air. He's set several high-altitude records and soared higher than Everest. Now, along with his ground crew of John Copeland and Matt Ferry, and second pilot J.P. Lemaire, he's ready to challenge one of the world's most treacherous inland seas. From Ottawa, it will take the team 30 hours of hard driving, 700 miles due north, simply to get to their jump-off point on the coast of James Bay. At a Cree hunting camp, the team makes final preparations for the real journey to begin. For the next 2 months, they'll travel across the ice of Hudson Bay, searching for ideal conditions to launch their balloons. They will tow a heavy load, including a vast array of high technology. This is a world where trouble is easy to find and even harder to escape.
So do you want me to show you on the map where I want to take my plane, and then I'll show you where I'm going to fly?
Yeah, you didn't have to show me, I'll find you.
Okay, Georgie Snowboy knows his world well, where wisdom is more precious than technology.
Yeah. I'll go out, fly out over the flow edge, and then I'll come back and land where you wanted me to land.
Find a place there, around Cape Jones. There's lots of nice place there.
Yeah, I'll catch
but
up.
watch the rocks, eh?
1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 10. 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh yeah, baby, I'll take the yellow Argo.
Ice on the bay is 4 feet thick, but traveling on it is still hazardous and necessary. On land, the snow is too deep and the coastline too rocky. Their Argo snow machines can haul 1,000 pounds and will even float if the ice cracks under them. "80 miles north of Seal River, James and Hudson Bays meet at Cape Jones, the site of an abandoned radar station. Frozen in time, it is an omen for another Cold War that is just beginning.
So this is Hudson Bay on our right and James Bay on our left.
No, this is the Hudson Bay, and this is the James Bay over here.
James Bay over here, yeah. And how far out do you think the flow edge is? Out maybe 3 miles?
A little more than that.
A little more than that?
No, we'll see about 4.
John Davidson loves to fly. To scout ahead for the thin margin between stable ice and fatal open water, he uses a unique aircraft called a power parachute.
I don't know why I'm comfortable in the air. I'm scared of heights, but I enjoy being up in the air. If I get frustrated, I make a business mistake or whatever. None of them are a care in my mind if I'm up in the air. But as soon as I'm back to the ground again, all the problems come back.
Yeah, this is the same kind of clutches on a Skidoo, right?
Davidson faces a serious problem.
George might know.
In the jarring cold, a clutch has failed, and the closest parts are 1,000 miles away.
No, we all go into Great Trail River and leave the machine here.
And come back tonight.
Come back tonight and we'll pick it up and bring everything down. That's the fastest way. What's the use of waiting here?
The Cree elder is right. The team has no choice but to head southeast to the town of Kujarapik. It's a 70-mile detour and a critical delay, but the town does have an airport, allowing parts to be shipped in. Located at the mouth of the Great Whale River, Kujarapik stands at the junction point between the ancient lands of the Cree and Inuit. Old or young, people here know the North as a trickster, an unpredictable spirit with many faces and many moods. A character Davidson's team has only begun to understand.
Is this unloaded or loading? It doesn't seem like it's a very good tracking system because we don't know where it is. You mean, is it worth looking in the plane again for a little box?
There is no box in this plane stopping in Great Whale.
Not in Inukjuak, not in PLV, not in Great Whale. So that's the only destinations this plane was going to.
With his spare parts lost, Davidson is stuck in a world where life is dictated not by men, but by wind, ice, and the tides of Hudson Bay. Finally, John Davidson's spare parts have arrived.
Skype you?
All right. How can I get it?
You have to sign the waiver.
I'll sign anything you want.
The repair turns out to be surprisingly easy, but after days of waiting and watching good weather come and go, the team is anxious to move on before the North plays another trick. Their route will shadow the east coast of Hudson Bay, 100 miles north to the Richmond Gulf.
The first breakdown was a setback, and that's all it was. Absolutely knew that the trip was going to go forward. We were still fresh in the trip, so I knew that we were just going to take this as a challenge and move on.
The Richmond Gulf is one of the most dynamic ecosystems in all of Hudson Bay. Savage winds and swirling tides keep the water open all winter, ideal for wildlife and for John Davidson to fly a balloon.
So I got 5 more of that too. Okay, let's look at our priorities. The priorities are, I want to fly over the Gulf. That's one of the reasons we came here with the power parachute. So that's what I'm going to do if the weather
allows it, right?
Okay.
That's the first thing. So right now we're working between here and the Richmond Gulf. And do you feel comfortable going in that backslide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't want to make a mistake. You go in the Gulf slide and you're going to go for a swim, right?
After establishing their base camp, the team leaves immediately to scout the terrain. In his power parachute, Davidson looks down on a diverse landscape of canyons and barrens, open water, and dangerous ice. On the ground, his team intends to get an even closer look.
See how fast the tide is, eh, boys?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really fast.
And then if you look up there, you can see where the Richmond Gulf and the Hudson Bay meet, and that's where you see the two lines. So if you imagine how low it would go, the current would be dragging along and then brushing up with another body of water.
Yeah, at that point, there's got to be some serious undertows.
Seriously.
Created by a watershed the size of New York State, billions of gallons of fresh water have carved an escape to the Gulf through deep granite chasms. Beneath its churning surface, hardy plant life anchors the food chain for an abundance of wildlife. But not for people. Both the Cree and Inuit fear this place, leaving this rugged, uninhabited land to nature and the spirits of the North. The team's own guides have refused to come here, forcing them to find their own way in this uncharted wilderness. And even in the sky, it's easy to get lost.
I think you came out of the river valley and went left. There's no other way that you would see the open water of the Richmond Gulf, and you guys told me you saw the open water.
That's correct.
Well, then you had to have gone north to see the open water. I can see the river valley from here. It's completely flat. It's a natural way to go with hardly any trees.
The team has another problem. Their GPS locators are back at camp, a mistake that could spell disaster. But on this day, their luck holds.
All right.
From the edge of a granite canyon 1,000 feet deep, 5 miles wide and 40 miles long, the balloonists finally confront the challenge ahead.
Unbelievable place. Ballooning over this would be absolutely amazing, eh?
If you're coming across here and you started tailing off left, the worst thing that could happen is you land in the bay over there.
Yeah, you know what kind of air would be hitting you as you came down and landing there? You want it to be pretty calm.
To fly a balloon anywhere on Earth demands perfect conditions. But in the North, perfect weather is a cruel joke, especially in the Richmond Gulf, where some of the planet's strongest winds have been recorded.
When you guys were retrieving me, you got really close. And close wasn't good enough, right? Because there was a couple hills in between. We were within, let's say, a quarter mile. And we were talking to each other. Would a flare not have just said, well, I know kind of where I gotta go, whether I gotta go around this way or that way, there he is.
Yeah, that would work too.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
All right.
Tomorrow, if the North agrees, they'll fly. Early morning is the best time to fly a hot air balloon. the team releases a small balloon called a pieball to check conditions at 1,000 feet.
That is amazing how stable that is. Hasn't pulled hardly anywhere.
Oh, it's shocking. Maybe.
Yeah, it might be pulling to the right there now.
Wind velocity and direction look ideal. Now there's no time to waste.
You have to do a balloon flight when the weather says to do it. You don't do a balloon flight based on whether you're tired or not tired or whether the equipment's ready or not ready. You do a balloon flight when the wind says it's ready to do a balloon flight.
Hundreds of pounds of silk are inflated with propane burners. It's a frantic ritual they've practiced countless times. As soon as Davidson and second pilot J.P. Lemaire are airborne, they make instant history, flying the first hot air balloons over the Richmond Gulf. Finally, they're in their element.
Okay, I'm gonna have some fun with the water. You're gonna follow, and when you get down low in the water, I'll probably go up.
Hot air balloons have a distinct advantage over fixed-wing aircraft. They're more forgiving when they decide to come down, but not in the Richmond Gulf.
So I finally got myself in a spot where I don't want to land anymore. I want to enjoy it, but I don't want to land. 190 feet. Dropping 150 feet a minute. Nice and gentle. Here we go. We're going to do a touch and go on some Arctic ice. What do you think?
Although the water is cold enough to kill in less than a minute, Davidson attempts to dip his balloon's basket in the frigid soup. A very risky maneuver.
Big problem, eh? Because we're headed right at the mountains now.
Unpredictably, the wind has shifted, forcing the balloon off its flight path toward a forbidding wall of cliffs. Sensing the danger ahead, Davidson knows he now has to land as soon as possible.
Anywhere off the water, I guess, is a fantastic spot. It's okay, here we go. Maybe 10 seconds.
Once again, Davidson must gamble with the elements and land safely on solid ice. J.P. Lemaire in the second balloon plays it safer and heads for solid ground. After weeks of cold frustration, the warmth of success is a welcome relief. But their journey is far from over. It's a new day and a new adventure. Ahead lies 120 miles of ice between the Richmond Gulf and the team's next destination, the village of Sanikiloak in the remote Belcher Islands.
I don't know if this is actually on the best
They
way.
may be the first white men to ever attempt the ice crossing alone, a challenge the team had not planned on.
We arranged for a guide for a while, but the guide had problems with his equipment, which we may have too, but he ran into his problems with his equipment early, and those problems couldn't be solved, and as a result, we're without a guide. We're without anybody.
You don't think we're making it sound a kilowatt?
Not today, boys. Not today. We'd love to make it in one day, but it's probably unrealistic. We're probably gonna have to be camping on the ice.
The worst thing that could happen is it takes us 3 days to cross, or we come back here and the expedition ends.
Looking out from the safety of the coast, the ice of Hudson Bay is a vast and very flat desert. But without guides, the team has no way of knowing what really lies beyond the horizon line. Soon enough, they find out. Only a few miles out, they drive headlong into an icy hell.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Glorious weather right now. But we've gone all of about 2 miles.
Buckled, jagged ice the size of boulders stretches north, south, and west for miles, creating a formidable obstacle. To go through it or around it could take days, if their fuel holds out.
Clutch broken half. Clutch broken? Yeah.
After battling the ice for hours, the decision is an easy one when an Argo breaks down. Now there's no choice, except a hasty retreat to the coast. By the time they return, even the weather has turned on them. Another vicious reminder of the North's unforgiving power. The storm has battered the camp for 3 days. But when it breaks, the team has visitors. Inuit hunters returning to the Belcher Islands have brought new spare parts from Kujarapik and agreed to guide them across the ice bridge.
These guys are going to travel at night. I've traveled at night before, and there's no problem. It is bloody cold. If all of a sudden, an hour after sunset, it gets cold.
The Inuit have wandered the North for centuries, and today their survival still depends on an instinctive respect for the many faces of the land they call home. But even the Inuit rely on more than intuition to find their way. Veterans of the North's unpredictable moods, they're reluctant to camp on the ice overnight. The safest way is to get across as fast as possible.
I was firmly against going across at night. I did not want to do that. What did come of it was that 12, 16 hours of sitting in a machine, we started to hallucinate. And all of a sudden, instead of being in this great big open expanse of ice and ridges, you were actually starting to travel up a canyon.
By midnight, they're over halfway, but still 60 miles from the nearest solid ground. Daylight brings with it a welcome sight, the rocky coast of the Belcher Islands. Turning north, they reach Sanikiluaq 2 hours later. Physically and mentally exhausted, the team heads directly for the only hotel in town. A series of pre-built trailers that still look a lot like heaven.
Let's not worry about anything. Let's just go inside and get some sleep.
Typical of the North, Sanikiluaq is a place of extremes. A modern village isolated on ancient volcanic rock. By necessity, the Inuit are a nomadic people, but Sanikiluaq is unique. Surrounded by churning water in summer and locked in ice for the rest of the year, they rely solely on Hudson Bay for survival. In the town's cafe, John Davidson is surprised to meet Marty Obard, a wildlife biologist here to study the North's most fearsome predator, the polar bear.
And once again, I mean, it is a very
Obard is
easy
even
and
more
safe
surprised
way to fly over.
when Davidson offers him a chance to observe them from the sky, if he can find them.
John, based on the movements of our satellite collared bears, it looks like, if you see here, the bears that were collared in James Bay, in late winter, they tend to move up to the south end of the Belchers. And based on that, one opportunity would be off the south end of the Belchers.
Yeah, South Camp?
Yeah, depending on where the bears were at the moment.
Their plan is to travel south to a point in the Belcher Islands where areas of open water called polynias are located, and the bears are known to hunt.
Oh, great. That'll make it a little shorter.
Yeah.
Well, I think Marty's he likes a little adventure as well. He wasn't going to be difficult to get up in the balloon. Here he had an opportunity to see the land that his bears travel over.
Leaving Sanikiluaq at dawn, their route weaves 60 miles through an archipelago of more than 1,000 windswept islands. Their destination is a remote hunting camp, located about as far south as you can go in the Belchers, and the only permanent shelter of its kind for hundreds of square miles. The journey takes 10 hours, but as soon as he gets there, Davidson is anxious to fly.
Tonight, a very few light flurries, winds northwesterly 20 to 40 kilometers.
The Inuit know this world well, but they've never seen anything like a power parachute, or the man who flies it. Davidson heads directly for the closest polynia, hoping to sight his first bear. In this frozen northern world, the open waters of a polynia defy the laws of nature. Derived from a Russian word meaning open field, polynias are kept open by the action of prevailing winds and swift currents. Mysterious but vital oases for marine life, they attract a host of seals, fish, waterfowl, and bears. On the surface, the land appears empty and barren. The Inuit, however, know better. To the Inuit, polynias are an ecological supermarket where fishing nets can be cast and Arctic char hauled up even in the dead of winter. Like John Davidson, Marty Obard has traveled a long way. And he knows somewhere out there, a great predator is prowling his vast domain.
What? Probably.
Get comfortable.
Get my scoop.
For only the second time since their journey began over 6 weeks ago, the North has again turned generous, and John Davidson's team is ready to fly.
Thanks, guys.
For Marty Obard, his first balloon flight is an even rarer experience, since this is the first time anyone has ever attempted to fly a balloon over the Belcher Islands of Hudson Bay. Soaring over jagged clefts of igneous rock, the violent volcanic origins of the islands are seen for the first time from a new perspective.
Fox tracks down there. And hare tracks. He went right up the side of that. Look.
Yeah, it's quite a
amazing.
climb, eh? What a beautiful day to be flying in Belcher Island.
Davidson has planned it perfectly. A gentle breeze eases them out over the bay. Conditions in the air are perfect. But on the ice, no sign of any bear activity.
And no sign of tracks anywhere around those Polynias.
Those are good size, though, eh?
From 1,000 feet, the bay ice appears infinite and ominous. But Davidson and Obard are both too busy to sense any danger.
See the two little islands down here, John?
Yeah.
And then about halfway between the second little island and the big one over there, there's a wavy line. Then it seems to split.
Obard thinks he sees movement on the ice, and they move in closer. The Polynia appears empty.
I certainly have a greater respect for the hunters here, you know. There have been years they've pulled in 25 bears in a week.
Even at 100 feet, the abstract ice provides perfect camouflage. They could be looking for a needle in a haystack the size of Texas.
That'd be nice. Nice and gentle and quiet.
Looming ahead is the last finger of land before the Belcher Islands dissolve into the bay.
Under 5 miles.
Suddenly, the wind speed picks up. If Davidson can't land the balloon soon, it will soar back over the ice and out of range for his ground crew to retrieve them safely.
Here we go, boys. It's a good thing you secured all your stuff here. Holy jumping.
You want me to take that camera?
No, you should probably just get out if you can.
Are you gonna put that away?
If you can.
The wind has brought with it another surprise. Warmer air temperatures and swirling sea currents are working quickly to break up the ice around the islands. Spring has arrived sooner than expected, creating a dangerous dilemma for Davidson and his team. If they leave now to cross the thinning ice back to the coast, it could break up at any time, and anywhere. But if they delay, they could be stranded here, unable to finish the expedition. By next morning, the team's sleds are loaded and ready to go. The Inuit are willing to risk the crossing if they leave now. They head due east over ice that appears safe and solid, hoping it will stay that way for another 120 miles. But then, another mechanical breakdown.
The chain is loose on the top, right? Yeah, the front chain, the very front chain. When you brake, what's happening, I think, is a link of the chain is jamming against the little square frame. I think that we're into a camp overnight for sure. Kelty camp. No comments on that one?
Well, I say it's noon or 12:30. Let's just go. Let's see how far we get. We'll reassess at 6.
Okay.
An overnight delay on suspect ice is not an option. Fortunately, the Argo repair is an easy one, and the caravan quickly moves on.
About 20 miles out from the shoreline, we went across a crack. It wasn't a really big crack, but it hadn't been there on our way to the Belchers. So I think the urgency started right then. You know, it was going to be a bit of a race to get back, depending on how the weather was going to treat us.
6 p.m. comes and goes. They've driven hard for over 8 hours. And with the light failing, there's no thought of stopping. By sunset, the race is on. 60 miles of ice still lies ahead. And another midnight crossing. After traveling for 30 hours across open sea ice, the last 10 in the black of night, the expedition has made it back safely to the east coast of Hudson Bay. Battered by a late winter storm and plagued by exhaustion, the team has crumbled into camp. Outside their tent, it's hard to believe that spring has arrived. All they can do now is wait for the North's fury to subside. By next morning, the snow has eased off, allowing them to prepare for the last long trek home. With time and now speed of the essence, there will be no more flying.
I mean, the propane weighs quite a bit in the bottles, and we're burning it off to reduce the weight of carrying it on the land. But for a balloonist, it really is. I mean, I've hauled that propane all the way from here to the Santa Kilowak and back, so that's, I don't know how many hundreds of miles, but now I'm on my way back, almost home, and I'm burning it off.
Day 50 of the expedition sees the wind off the bay reach a new intensity. With their food and patience running out, the team decides it must push south, even though the visibility is 0 and the wind chill minus 40 degrees. It will be a 300-mile marathon from the Richmond Gulf back to Chisisibi, the beginning and hopefully their journey's end. Mile after mile, the wind tears at the expedition until suddenly, as quickly as it began, it stops, revealing another fact of northern life.
Poor little seal. Probably won't find his mother.
Wait here for a bear.
Either a wolf or a fox or somebody will get it, or a polar bear. What are we gonna do? We're gonna let nature run its course. I feel bad for the poor little guy.
But with a little luck, this seal pup might survive. Sooner than later, the bay ice will melt, giving it a chance to swim for home. It's an option that doesn't bode well for Davidson and his team. With winter now officially behind them, the further south they go, the thinner the ice gets. After 2 punishing months and over 2,000 miles, both man and machine begin a final, desperate race.
Our mind was set on just get there any way we can. And, you know, the water in some places was getting over a foot deep, but I can just imagine what it looked like. Yellow Argo in the lead with one broken tire in the front, pulling a powered parachute that was on pretty much full blast, pulling a broken Argo in the back.
Day 61 of the expedition brings them within sight of the James Bay coast. Without a moment to spare, they've made it back.
I'm drenched, absolutely drenched. I look dry up here, and my feet are drenched.
The team load their vehicles quickly, anxious to return to a more predictable world. On the road south, the vanishing snow is a sobering reminder of how close the expedition came to a disastrous end. The early spring has transformed the face of the North, its unforgiving nature now melting into 1,000 rivers, which will power eastern North America for another summer to come.
I think that the North was kind to us on this trip, and I forget the exact saying that somebody said about the North at one time, you know, that in the first couple of years you learn a lot, and the next 10 years you realize that you have way more to learn. Certainly that's the truth.
Like many who have come before, they leave the North as they found it, an eternal magnet to the explorer's soul.